the previous videos, we talked about the continual quality improvement. We mentioned that it is a systematic process which supposedly comes from the internal effort and should be carried out on the regular basis. A good CQI process should always come with proper documentations, objective and clearly defined performance metrics. While doing this CQI, there will always be problem noticed. We are not seeking to blame anyone. Instead, we are looking for improvements. Normally, we do not expect all the problems can be resolved at once. We are looking at the sustainable aspects. Small improvement over a period of time, the program becomes better and better. There will be processes of defining the problems, proposing the possible solutions, doing trial and errors on the solutions, identify the solutions which are workable, and then further fine-tuning so that those workable solutions can be further optimized. Once the things is in place, we will maintain the solutions to be incorporated as a part of the program. And then we go forward to other problems. Restart the process from identifying problems until optimizing the solutions. This will continue and we will see the growth of the programs. We also show an example in terms of the CQI cycle. There are outcomes at various levels. There are various assessment tools. Different tools have their functions and contribute to various levels. You should use the right tools to do the assessment. Make sure it serves the right purposes of the assessment. And then there will be data analysis. Based on the data as acquired from the assessment, you will need to define whether the respective outcomes are being attained. In order to determine the attainments of the outcomes, normally we will have the performance indicators clearly spelled out. As a start, normally we will set a target. And then these targets will be fine-tuned later over several cycles, depending on the sensitivity of the measurements. The ultimate goal here is to have this OBE model to help you to identify the strengths and the weaknesses of the program. It is so that you can focus your attentions towards improving the weaknesses. Next, there will be CQI. Based on the analysis outcome, you will work out a series of actions in order to improve the programs at different levels of outcome. Once you have proposed the CQI actions, make sure you're going to implement them. You will need to also monitor the implications of implementing these CQIs. Whatever proposal that you have made and what is implemented, it doesn't necessarily that it always give you positive output. Sometimes it may not lead to meeting the intended purposes. You should be able to identify that. And then you will review the CQI action again. See if anything can be carried out in order to mitigate it. You don't have to really manipulate the result from the CQI. The entire system here will have to be carried out professionally. Whatever result as acquired, you will accept as it is, as the result should theoretically give you a true reflections in terms of the performance of the program as an overall. If the result come up to be not favorable, it is totally okay, because your next course of actions will try to rectify that. It will be quite doubtful that all the CQI actions will yield the positive output, at least from my personal perspectives. Most likely will only report those that give you positive output. In fact, those giving you negative output should have also been documented. This provides valuable experiences for the CQI committee in future, having sufficient information and data, knowing what kind of CQI actions will not be workable, and this shall significantly reduce the time consumed onto implementing the solutions which is obviously not workable. We also talk about there are a series of stakeholders. Different stakeholders may involve with the outcome at different levels. You may involve them as necessary to see the program at the broader aspects. Now let us proceed with our CQI actions. You know that CQI is the heart of OBE. It is basically a systematic pursuit of excellence and satisfaction of the needs of the stakeholders in a dynamic and competitive environment. If you understand OBE here now, you will realize that OBE model is actually very dynamic. It is only when we do not apply proper CQI, the entire system becomes rigid and traditional. Sometimes you hear academicians complaining that OBE is just paperwork. It serves nothing except adding up the workload to the lecturers. This is not true. The person who claims this most likely do not know what is the real OBE. Specifically, most likely they are mimicking the OBE framework without fully understanding the spirit of CQI. Now let us look at the diagram here to see the involvement of the stakeholders. This can be seen from three perspectives here: the stakeholders' needs and institutional missions, the stakeholders' satisfactions, and also the feedbacks and inputs from the stakeholders. When we talk about an academic program, we are referring here under an institution of higher learning. There are missions and visions. Under a typical program, there will be program objectives and program outcomes. The program objective and the program outcome shall later be translated into the curriculum. The curriculum design should be intended to achieve the program objective and the program outcome, whereas the program objective and program outcome should theoretically meet the needs of the missions and visions. Let's say we are talking about an engineering program. There will be a series of the courses that need to be delivered within the engineering program. The relevant course, each of them will have 3 to 4 course outcomes. And then this course outcome should have strong correlations to the POs. Also under the requirements of the ESC as well as the GAPC of IEA, there will be knowledge profile, complex engineering problem solving, complex engineering activities, and sustainable development goals. All these will have to be incorporated within the curriculum. These are parts and parcel leading to achievement of the POs. Now you have the curriculum completed. Comes to the teaching and learning activities. All the teaching and learning shall be based on the curriculum design. You will need academic staff, support and service staff, as well as the facilities in order to carry out those teaching and learning activities. All these will have to be specifically designated to make the teaching and learning activity effective. Now, when it comes to the facility, resources, staffs, it is under the quality management system, as well as the administrations of the institutions of higher learning. The institutions will take charge and take responsible over supply of all these things in order to make sure the program achieves the intended objectives. Now, where does the stakeholders involve? The highest level, it will be the missions and visions. This sets the purpose of the higher learning institutions at the first place. What is the value of these institutions of higher learning? Why do we need them? Definitely, there are some needs from the stakeholders, which can only be supplied by this IHL. That leads to the existence of this IHL. Therefore, the stakeholders' needs to be made clear enough to the institutions so that the missions and visions can be skewed more towards their needs. Now, who are those stakeholders? It can be the government. It can also be general public. It can be the financing organizations. It can also be the industry, demanding for the specialties and manpowers. Now, the needs of the stakeholders shall indirectly affect the missions and visions of the institutions. And then, there will be inputs from the stakeholders. We have students coming in, going through the entire program, done the assessment. As the outputs, graduates are produced. When the graduates are released into the industry, we will see the response from the stakeholders, whether the graduate meets their expectations. Are they satisfied with the performance of the graduates? Now, based on the satisfactory levels, there will be feedbacks and data, and we use them to monitor the program and review the program. Based on those data, we identify the strengths and weaknesses of the program, and then we propose for CQI. Now, this process of monitoring, review, and CQI will involve all the aspects here. It can be done at the program objective and program outcomes levels. It may also be done in terms of the educational resources and facility, or at the curriculum content level, or at the staff level, and so on and so forth. This creates a loop of producing students and graduates, releasing into the industry, and then acquiring feedbacks from the industry, and then we continue with the monitoring, review, and CQI. Therefore, we will require timely feedbacks from the stakeholders. At the same time, we will also require the inputs from the stakeholders. We need quality students as well. There will be a mechanism to filter the suitable students. The students will go through the teaching and learning activities, and there will be assessments to determine the qualities of the outputs. If the students meet the requirement, they are allowed to be released into the industry. If not, they will have to continue with the teaching and learning activities until they meet the requirements. We do internal assessment based on the CO and PO assessment. This will also supply data for us to do the monitoring, review, and CQI of the program. When it comes to CO and PO assessment, those are direct assessment. We have solid data and informations, and we can closely monitor our students. This is going to bring significant contributions to the monitoring, review, and CQI of the program. You will see another loop here. We assess the quality of the students internally, and then we work out for the CQI and improvements for the programs. Now we have two routes of supplying information and data. You can always cross-check between the results. Are the result here and here in line? We can use them to verify each other. If both assessment here give us similar results, that means we know this assessment is quite reliable, and we can do immediate CQI once we have the assessment result. This will make the loop here running faster. Now if the result here and here are not in line, that means we have to take some efforts to fine-tune the result here, so that what we acquire here reflects what is actually happening here. There will be a process of fine-tuning until both of them give similar outcomes. Now we can quickly work on this monitoring and CQI, make the loop running faster on basis of the result then. What you see, the entire mechanism here, it is very much dependent on the outcome in terms of the assessment here. There is a reason for that. This can be done under high levels of control by the institutions of higher learning. When we have better control over this assessment, we have the ability to remove and eliminate the potential bias in terms of the data. Secondly, we have the ability to control the periodic cycles of this assessment. This helps us to speed up the process here. That's why most of the university will take this as the emphasis. Of course, this is provided that the assessment result here must be in line with what is happening in the reality. Most of the university take this as a mechanism to verify the result here. This is because the measurement here are normally indirect. The nature of the result are based on the perceived values of these stakeholders that we approach. There are potential bias that we might not be able to fully eliminate. There can also be inconsistency in terms of the level of satisfactions by different stakeholders. Another reason is there are various types of stakeholders here. Different stakeholders may be concerned of different situations. Industrial practitioner may be more concerned with the technical skills and the working ability. Now, if you are talking about the government and regulating bodies, their emphasis may be differ. In this case, probably the macroeconomic, it will be their major concern. Now, coming from different perspective, there could be inconsistency in terms of the satisfaction levels. So, when we want to use the data here, we need to know what are those data in the first place. In this case, it is totally understandable why most universities will pay more emphasis here, as it is more easily manageable. If you see the whole thing here, you will know that a program is not separated and isolated by itself. There are always purposes of the program, and there are strong correlations with the stakeholders. There are the needs of the stakeholders. There are inputs from the stakeholders, and the outputs are released to the stakeholders. The program is just a part of meeting the requirements of the stakeholders. When you see this, you will realize that we will require the contributions of the stakeholders, as well as the participations of the stakeholders when it comes to the program design and implementations. We will need to get the stakeholders at a similar level, as they are supposed to be a part of the program design, instead of waiting for the output and complaining that the program does not meet their purpose. This we will have to also educate the stakeholders. It is only when the stakeholders participate more actively, the program will skew more towards their needs and satisfactions. And it is only when the CQI is truly implemented, we will see a dynamic development of the program in an institutions of higher learnings. It is only when the entire thing is running smoothly, every single part of them play significant roles, then we will achieve the excellence and fully meet the satisfactions of the stakeholders.